today because I'm interested in idioms and cliches. They tend to become so used, and of course that's the definition of a cliche. It's used so many times we barely even notice it. Do you have anything in your life that you do so many times and so ritualistically that you hardly notice that you're doing it anymore? Does that ever happen to anybody here? There may be sayings, things that we were once very sincere about saying, and then we just say it, and maybe we don't think about it. And one of the aspects of a mindful life, a life of consciousness, conscious awareness, enlightened engagements with the world is examining what we're doing and being aware why we're doing it. What's the meaning behind it? Cliches interest me. I see them a lot when I travel, go on various pilgrimages around the world. A friend of mine told a story to me once that I could really relate to. It was called The Cat in a Basket. And would you all like to hear a story? I'm not convinced. Wolf, you want to hear a story?
Yes.
Okay, Nick, listen to it.
Please.
All right. So there was once a person who was teaching his students how to perform a wedding. He was a venerable leader, and he went to great lengths to teach his students. So in the next generation, they'd be able to carry on the tradition just the way he had done it and the way he'd received it from his predecessors. And so while he was doing the training session, there was a little cat that kept coming through a crack in the wall and was playing with all the paraphernalia that was being set up for the wedding. And each time the priest would take out the cat and put it outside, but somehow it got back in again. And it was a frisky little cat. So finally he decided he would get a bowl of milk, and he offered it to the cat and pet the cat. And the cat then became a little sleepy, and he put it in a basket over in the corner and sawed off to sleep, and then came back to organizing the paraphernalia for the wedding. And the students all took copious notes during this seminar. And a few years later, when this venerable teacher had passed away, the students then took up the mantle, and they were the ones that would be performing the wedding. So as they were setting up for it the first time on their own, they all got together and they were putting everything just in the right places. And before the wedding was to start, one of them, who had taken the most copious notes, cried out, "We can't start." And they all were alarmed by this, said, "We're missing the most important ingredient. I saw our teacher take so much care. We have to have a cat in the basket. Otherwise we can't start." And so they went and found a cat and got some milk and put it before the cat. And then the cat went to sleep, put it in the basket, and said, "Now we can start." And from that day forward, they taught it to their students, and it got passed down through many generations. And never was there a wedding from that time on in the village that there was not a cat in the basket. So oftentimes in our lives, we may pick up something or do something so many times we forget why we're doing it. This is called, in one of the Bhakti Yoga teachings, Niyamagraha, it's doing things without thinking about why we're doing them. Well, I like to take cliches and look at them, because oftentimes I don't even notice them because we say them so many times, and then unpack them and think, wow, what do they actually mean? So the idiom, digging one's own grave, I heard the other day and I thought, that's a fairly instructive idiom that comes up from time to time. And I thought today we'll unpack it in the context of Bhakti Yoga philosophy and see what it means. How does that sound to you? Shiv, okay? Shiv Kalva, good to see you. Okay, so.
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much. Great smile, by the way. Let's start off today with a little bit of introspection or meditation. So if you're up for it, sit up just a tiny bit straighter than you were a second ago. And then close your eyes and bring your awareness to your breath. And luxuriate in the oxygen that's coming in. And remember that you're carrying out with your exhale impurities, a process that's keeping us alive. But throughout the day, we may not even think of or remember. And as you're exhaling, you can mentally say out and inhale, mentally say in. And keep a very alert mind, but relax the rest of your body. And just breathe and be present in your breath. And now, if you will, take the perspective of a witness. Notice that you're in a body and you're the one who's witnessing the various functions of the body. For instance, for a moment, just bring your awareness to your stomach. And even though we may be unaware of how it's taking place, note that stomach is digesting. It's doing a very complex task. And as the witness, you can become aware that I am not my stomach. And bring your awareness a little higher to your heart region. And just for a moment, become aware that your heart is pumping. And as you are the witness and watching it pump, you can become aware that I am not my heart. And now bring your awareness to any of the thought energy that's within your mind. And stay in your perspective as the witness. And note that you're observing your thoughts, the energy that's moving through your chitta, or the mind space, but you're not your thoughts. And now become aware of your own cognition. Become aware of yourself and be aware that you are alive. Be aware that you are the one that's animating the body. As soon as you step out of this body will immediately go dark and begin to deteriorate. And for a moment, be aware that you're being maintained. There's a higher force that's maintaining the functions of the stomach, of the heart, even the thoughts or the intelligence that comes to us as we're working on a problem, the formula comes into our mind as if it's a gift. Become aware that there's a benevolent presence that's supplying everything. And now we'll say the single syllable mantra, Om, which synchronizes the spiritual energies within the heart chakra. And you can repeat after me, or say it along with me behind muted mics. Om. And just notice that the vibration resonated in your solar plexus. It leaves an impression in your consciousness. You can bring your awareness back to your breath. And then rub your hands together to get some external sensation. Open your eyes and come back into the Zoom room. And welcome back. And we're going to be, Pavani's going to be looking in the chat. So interested to hear any kind of experience you had in the meditation. What did it feel like? Was it something, did you notice anything? Did you pick up anything doing that exercise of introspection? You just toss it in the chat. And Lewis said, definitely caught my attention, but I'm not sure what the context was. Anna, calm stillness. Thank you. So, the instant you said notice, Pavani, you can read them, please.
Sure. The instant you said notice, you are being maintained, I felt choked up.
Ooh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was Subhadra. And then Mariam says, it felt reassuring as I know I'm not my body.
Nice.
And Louis said for the first comment that he was talking about the title of the presentation.
Wow. Oh, thanks, Lewis. Okay. Yeah, definitely caught my attention. Well, I like these reflections. Subhadra, how is it that just doing a little observation, introspection, that one could become choked up? And what is this feeling of reassurance that one gets in just observing, I'm not my body? These are profound reflections. And I would propose that this goes with the famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita in which the student, Arjuna, asks his teacher, Krishna, what is the symptom of someone who's fixed in consciousness? Sanskrit is called the Stita Prajna. And the first answer that Krishna gives regarding one who's steadied his or her consciousness is Prajahati Yada Kaman. He says, first of all, that one who's able to withdraw from the outside world. The senses are always searching, just like the mind with your smartphone, it's always looking for a network. As soon as you take it anywhere, it starts searching. Where's the next thing to catch on to? So the senses are like that too. They're roaming and they want to catch on to something. And then he says that Sarvan Partha Manogatan, one who learns the art of not running after every single urge that comes up and can just let them go and objectify them and notice, I'm not my urges. Then he says, Atmanyeva Atmana Tushta. Tushta means satisfaction. And he says, if you can find satisfaction in yourself, as we were just doing, we were looking at how we are cognitive beings and witnessing your own power of cognition, that you are a unit of cognition, is altogether satisfying. You can feel tushta, or satisfaction, in that. So he said, this is what a person of steady consciousness is, somebody who's learned this art to take pleasure in the self. What else, Pavani?
Jesse says that the recognition of being alive was powerful and a reminder that that alone is very special.
Whoa, nice comment.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I mistake my life situation to be my life. I'm my life, and everything that's going on around me is my life situation. And the only reason it's my life situation and not a life situation is because I identify myself with it. This is a principle also taught in the Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna says, Dhyayato vishayan pumsam sangasteshu pujayate. When I look out from my perch, if I may, we're like a little bird of a consciousness in the body, and I'm on a perch. I'm looking out into the world through the cage of my body, and then I get attached to things, and I think that's for me. I want that. And then I develop a connection with it. It's called a sangha, and it becomes part of me. And so I say it's my car, my house, my family, my nation, my sports team, my toothbrush, everything, my. They're actually only things, and very soon they'll be transforming, moving on, but I say they're mine. And the anxiety that I find in my life is being attached to things that are moving on. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm always there, always present, always conscious, but the world around me or my life situation is constantly changing. And it's my attachment to the changing life situation that causes me consternation. Anything else, Pavani?
Yeah, one more is from Mala, and she says that when I heard that I'm not my body, I paused to reflect, who am I?
Aha, that's the big question, right? Good to ask. Well, that brings us to, let's do a few slides then. Do you want to run them, or do you want me to?
I can run it as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I know you can do it all. Okay, so today we're looking into the idiom digging one's own grave. Quite a jangling statement. What does it mean to dig anyway? To break up and move earth with a tool or machine, or with hands, paws, snout, etc. Living beings in this world are using their snouts to move the earth, dig a hole, to find something, maybe some grubs. Somebody's using hands, somebody's using a tool or machine, but we're digging and digging. So the imagery here is that we work hard doing something in this world, moving the energy around. So which direction are we moving the energy? What's happening with it? So digging one's own grave is the next slide. And the definition of the idiom, to dig one's own grave, is to do something foolish that causes one to fail or be ruined. So we'll come back into the room for a second here, but the phrase itself, dig one's own grave. How many of you have ever heard it before or have noticed it? Is this the first time you've heard it in a while, or have any of you used this idiom? Yeah, okay. How did it make you feel when you heard it? I mean, what's the mood of this one, would you say? And you can either throw it in the chat, I mean, type in the chat, or you can, if you want to comment too, you're very welcome to enter into the Zoom conversation.
Okay. Bye, this is Anna. To me, it has, let's say, in the normal slang, it has kind of a very bad connotation because it means that you have done something wrong or have piled up a bit of things that are not good, and then you are digging your own grave. I have heard that most used in politicians or people that are like they have done, or managers or something that or high profile people that they have kind of a going through several series of mistakes and made things that were like a hidden, and then suddenly everything comes together and they dig at their own grave because they were caught in hands with all of the bad things that they do, and then they dig their own graves.
Nice.
That's the main that I have heard about.
Thanks,
this
Anna.
this thing.
Nice details there. Pavani, what else do we have on the chat?
Shiva feels caution or prepare ahead,
Yeah.
and Mayank feels alarmed.
Ah.
Subhadra feels that usually people say it about someone else, someone who will stubbornly keep doing something and may even refuse to listen to good advice.
Nice. So I guess when Mayank said he felt alarmed, that's kind of how it makes me feel too. And when I saw the graphic for today of people digging a grave, it seems quite alarming, doesn't it? Because like, why would you, I mean, what kind of situation would one be in that one's digging one's own grave? That it seems like it's hard to find a really good connotation for that. Although we could if we tried, I'm sure. But it's quite stark. Something from Grace.
Grace says that in a recent email discussion, someone cautioned not to respond to bad policies with, if I give you a shovel, will you dig your own grave? Yeah.
Yeah, if I give you a shovel, will you dig your own grave? Yeah, that makes it even more graphic. You know, it's like, if I give this to you, you're going to dig your own grave. Okay, so here are one of the primary thoughts about this, or a philosophical point.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Please.
I just wanted to add to about the usually people say it about someone else. That is so true, because we can look and see somebody digging their own grave. We could see them doing something foolish, but rarely ever do we say we're digging our own grave. We can't notice when we're doing something foolish, but we are quick to observe someone else doing it. So I just wanted to add on to that point. I would never dig my own grave. I'm the one who says, be careful not to dig a pit, because you might fall into it.
You're getting a lot of positive reactions from that. That everyone's agreeing. You get thumbs up, a lot of smiles, nodding heads, and things like that. Just so you know.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm glad to be here.
No, but it's an interesting point. But you know, when it comes to digging one's own grave, that I can see it in others and tell them, you're digging your own grave, but can I see myself? And this is a foundational point for any process through which I help myself, is to become self-aware. And what am I actually doing? And am I doing something, or have I done something to put myself at a disadvantage? And so this is a foundational point for improvement. I have to be able to be self-critical to the point of understanding where are there room for improvement? What am I doing that's caused me? And the other point is that I can't be a victim and say someone else did this to me. The idea is I've dug my own grave, and I'm in the situation I'm in now because of me, because of the ways in which I've moved in the world, not just in this life, but in previous lives, also in the law of karma. We know there's momentum coming into this life from my previous stopovers in various bodies and the ways that I've moved in the world. All right, let's see a couple more slides. So there are various ways in which the wisdom literatures describe the holes that we find yourself in. The two biggest holes are called avidya, and vidya means knowledge in Sanskrit. When you put an akar in front of the word, it reverses the meaning. So vidya, or knowledge, to be aware of one's identity, to know the nature of the world, to know one's purpose and so forth. When you put an A, it means you reverse that. So avidya means ignorance. I don't know. I'm not aware of myself. I'm not aware of the nature of the world. I don't know my purpose here. That's a hole that I've dug myself into. And the second big hole is called asmita, which means false ego. Let's look at them. There's a description in the next slides that talk about each one. So hole number one is avidya, which means intense attachment to that which is here today, gone tomorrow. Intense attachment to that which is here today, gone tomorrow. Let's come back in the room and just discuss this. Everyone have that in mind? Here today, gone tomorrow, but I'm really attached to it. We didn't actually come back in. Oh, there we are. Okay. So can anybody think of something that's here today, gone tomorrow that I'm intensely attached to, that you can identify in your life that you're intensely attached to, or that you'd care to speak about?
Job.
Your
Rajesh's job.
job. Say more about that. Job +1 you got here. Rajesh said same thing.
Zoom meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the uncertainty which exists, I think that especially living in a Bay Area, it's even we think that we are going to keep it. When we wake up, we never think, anytime they'll say, we don't need you anymore. So even how good you are, how well qualified you are, how deep you are in the knowledge, it's a market dynamics that shifts so quickly, then you become useless suddenly. So, and when we work so hard, we forget that fact that, we are being used, to a level where we got so heavily attached that without you, life won't move. So, you work hard, but then suddenly tomorrow you would be not needed. So I just feel like it's excessive attachment on my part, though.
Nice observation.
Also adding on what
Yeah, please,
Rajesh
go
is
ahead.
saying, and also seeing some of the answers in the chat, I think that more like to the job or the car or the money or youth, or is our perception of that we are our job, or that we are our car, or this means what am I, not really knowing who am I. It could be either for example, my degree, and if somebody asks me, okay, who are you? I'm a chemical engineer. Okay, it's something that I got attached, but it's not me, and it's something that I need to understand to how to separate me. But sometimes you got perceive that your value is your job, or that your value is the appearance that you're giving, your house, your money, the car that you drive, the clothes that you're using, the bag, the accessories.
These are excellent points. I like how you, Anna, you related the whole. We mentioned asmita, which means false ego, a sense of I and mine, with the conundrum of being attached to temporary things and identifying myself with them. Yeah, the really good point. And we've got a few. What are some of the other ones? Anna was alluding to them in the chat box. Maybe you can read them off, Pavani.
Yeah, she said everything material around us, youth, health, money, car, Zoom
Youth,
meetings.
that's one. How are we attached to youth? What are the demonstrable ways that we're attached to youth?
I think that in the culture there is a lot on the youth, and a lot of being only young people is shown in the TV or certain things, or that being young is you're strong, you are in your prime, You are, and we forget that being able to get more years is a blessing. Not all the people is blessed to get into more wisdom and learn through the time. And also, I remember when I decided not to dye my hair and keep my gray hair there. My dad was kind of because it started like with 7 when I was 17. Now I'm 52 and I have a lot more. So, but when I decided that, my dad was quite, why you should dye your hair? You look younger, and it's part of that, of our attachment
Anna,
of
what an
youth.
excellent point you're making. That's such a usable and demonstrable circumstance that even people around us are attached. No, you're supposed to look young. So we get attached to youth, and obviously we can't hold on to it. It just ebbs away, and you look up one day or look down and you say like, "Well, I'm not young anymore." Wow, excellent points. Let's go back to the slides. Manini talking about getting attached to your old self, your old beliefs. Yep. Nice. Okay, so where were we? Did we do? Okay, story. Once a great industrialist, my teacher told me this story. Once a great industrialist accumulated a vast fortune for his sons and grandsons, but later, according to his karma, he took his birth in a shoemaker's house located near the building which in his previous life he had constructed for his children. It so happened that when this very shoemaker came to his former house, his former sons and grandsons beat him with shoes. Get off our porch. So this was in the context of one of the wisdom literatures talking about the ways in which I accept all the life situation around me, my current family, nation, sports team, everything. This is my. But then in a slightly different context, you take another body, next you're born nearby, and then they become your enemies. And the roles are reversed, everything's different. So there's this wide perspective from a yogic point of view, seeing that we're simply passing through here very briefly. We're in a certain context now, and don't become so attached to that particular context. Let's keep going, Pavani. A couple more slides. So whole number 2, something Anna was bringing up so expertly. Asmita. Asmita means false ego, or I am my body. And a hint given to us by the wisdom literatures, we're not our material bodies. There are 2 bodies that we currently occupy. One is the subtle body, the astral body of mind, intelligence, and ego. These are subtle material elements. And then there's the gross physical body. It's made of obvious gross elements like earth, water, fire, air, ether, which means space. And it's a biomechanical robot made up of these elements. So we're not that body. We're in the body, and we animate the body. We use the body to interact with the outside world, but we're different from it. So asmita means I am my body, and all the other kinds of attachments that through which we dig ourselves into a hole and we are stuck, begin with these principles of avidya and asmita. Let's see the next one. So, the DBA. Who here is familiar with how to create a DBA? Quite different from an LLC. So DBA, doing business as, you have to fill out some paperwork, pay for it, and you have to advertise in the paper that although you have a business, like sole proprietorship, and then it has a name, but you want to branch out into a different, it can be an S Corp too, can also do a DBA. Then you branch out and you want to find another niche for your business. So you register the business name as a DBA, and that means doing business as. So you might be called the, I don't know, the Yellow Flower Corporation, and then you change it. I want to do business as the Mechanical Genius Corporation. So you branch out in a different direction, and you just call yourself something else. You get it registered, and then you're doing business as that, although your corporation has an original identity. So the idea of asmita, or the I am this body, is I'm actually not the body, but I'm doing business as the body. I'm advertising myself like, this is me. My name is Mayank. My name is Ramesh. My name is Lee or Angela. But actually, I'm not any of those things. In fact, where do we get those names? We were helped with our DBA when we come out of the womb. Somebody sits around and thinks, like, what should we call this new person who just came into the world? And they make up some name. And they say, let's call him Willie. And they make a little name tag. And, by the time you're aware that you're in the world, they're already calling you by the name. And you say, yeah, that's it. But that's not our real identity. We'll grow out of that. We have a lot of DBAs in this world, too. People call us by various terms and names that are assumed. And so the idea in the wisdom literatures is that the way we move in this world, the way we conduct ourselves and think about ourselves is actually a doing business as. It's not our real identity. So the first law of holes. Do you all know the first law of holes? If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Of course, that guy's not exactly in the hole, but if you were, the further down you dig, then the more you realize, like, wow, I'm going down. I'm not going up anywhere. So stop digging. That's the first thing. And second thing, second law of holes is once you've stopped digging, find a way out of the hole. I like this picture. Really, it indicates that we need some kind of help. There's a way in which we can take help from wisdom from those who have gotten out of the hole and so forth. And that rope is very powerful. But of course, we have to grab onto it. The rope may be there, but you have to grasp it. And so there are several ways the process of bhakti yoga really means to help yourself. If I dug myself into the hole, and what do I mean by that? Okay, so there's the rope. That's somebody else offering help. But if that person in the picture calls up to the person holding the rope and says, yeah, thanks for the rope, but can you also make sure it gets tied around me? Or can you make my hands go onto the rope? No, that part you have to do. I have to grab the rope and allow myself to be pulled out. So here are a few suggestions in the next slide about the practice, how to get out of the hole. So first is the antidote to being in ignorance or asmita or misidentifying myself with the body. One of the ways in which is to regulate the senses. Through regulating the senses, one's not so overwhelmed with the life situation. Just as we did in the beginning of this program, we regulated our senses just for a moment, and we took the time to introspect. And many of you reported back that you had some increased awareness of yourself, your environment, and you felt peaceful and so forth. So regulating the senses makes the mind peaceful. And when the mind's peaceful, it's like a pond that's very still and you can see what's at the bottom, clear water. The myriad stones that are there, the little fish that are swimming there, so beautiful, you can see everything. So similarly, when the mind becomes stilled through sense regulation, then we have a much better opportunity to become aware gradually of our spiritual identity. when I'm completely attached to material sense gratification and I'm being controlled by it, interestingly, you might find this interesting. There's a poet from antiquity who wrote about the process of bhakti yoga. His name was Raghunath Das. And he said that the way in which he moves in the world has been like getting waylaid by highway robbers. Highway robbers are scary because you're just driving along and then all of a sudden they have the road blocked with a log and you have to stop, and then they come out with guns and they take everything. So he described how highway robbers have taken everything from him and thrown him into a hole and he can't get out. And then he compared that to the senses, that oftentimes they're like highway robbers. They jump out, they grab me, they push me into a situation I didn't want to be in, and then I'm stuck in there. So that's why in the yogic process, for instance, in the book called the Upadeshamrita, which is a treatise on how to practice bhakti yoga, it begins with vachovegam. First, control the urges of your tongue. Manasakrodha vegam, control the urges of anger in the mind by regulation. So second is mantra meditation. This is one of the ways to regulate the senses and to come to this point of clarity of mind and purpose. The mantra itself has a spiritual quality. And when you practice mantra meditation, as we did earlier, you'll start to notice that there's a rope coming down that helps to pull us out of the hole. And the third is karma yoga, volunteer for selfless service. Oftentimes, as Rajesh was pointing out, work is so intense and I'm attached to my work because I have to survive and so forth. And if you take time to do voluntary work, it's off the grid. It doesn't have anything to do with making money, but you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, to do some service. Then you start to notice that your awareness of your higher identity becomes prominent. And in fact, it can also apply to the work that we're doing now, whatever it may be in the corporate world, or if you have your own business or anything. If you start considering it, I'm doing this work for service, and use some of the resources to do service. A lot of corporations do it. It's an enlightened way of working. And CEOs have thought about this, and it's like, yeah, let's give away some of what we're earning. And this is, everyone's their own corporation, ultimately. You are your own boss. And so you can start, everyone who wants to experiment with that, say the wisdom literatures, will be rewarded by a higher realization. So regulate the senses, do mantra meditation, a perennial suggestion I make, and do karma yoga, volunteer for selfless service. Let's come back into the room, just discuss that before we go into the second set of how to get out of the holes. Any reflections from what did you hear that stuck that you want to reflect back? You can drop it in the chat, or you can speak up in the Zoom. Should I have some music? Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, please.
So I apologize. I joined a little late and I missed the regulating senses exercise that you did at the beginning of the session. And I'm just curious, when you say regulate the senses, what really are you referring to? How do you regulate your senses?
There are different aspects to our life in which we use our senses. And if we get on a kind of routine so that the senses can calm down, they're not overstimulated, then we tend to get a better perspective of our higher self. As an example, and one I've given previously, it's a kind of it's a big part of our life is sleep. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapna vibodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. If you regulate your sleep, then he said it helps you to become free from the miseries of life. When you're contending with the miseries of life, it's very hard to simultaneously develop self-awareness. And sleep is one of the major ways. Another one is eating. When you regulate your eating, for instance, if you eat way too much or way too little, then either way you can be out of balance and disturbed in your practice of self-realization. And the third one he gives in that verse I just suggested, Shubha, is that also regulate your recreation. Not too much and not too little. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. You know, you have to take time to recreate yourself, and but don't do it all the time, because you also have to have some progress in your practice, in your life, and so forth. Those are some like really obvious ones, but there are a lot of fine details in that. You want to ask more? Did that make sense?
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks for the question. It's a very important question. What else, Pavani?
Mariam says, act of service will be more rewarding to us and others if we know our purpose first and offer the services that are aligned with our ultimate being.
Well, it's such a good point. It's very nice. And, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita as an example, Krishna talks about this, and he says, if you don't know yet your ultimate purpose, selfless service is so powerful. If you start somewhere, wherever you can, then you'll at least notice that you grow by giving. You become a bigger person, and your consciousness becomes more expansive. It's remarkable, actually. And one of the reasons is because our constitutional position is to do service and to love. And so when you put those two together, it equals selfless service. And if you do service for the sake of showing your love or appreciation, then it brings you back to awareness of your purpose and your higher self. But I agree with you that when you do first establish why you're doing it, I think that's one of the very important aspects. And you work purposefully, as you're suggesting, it's far more potent. And it kind of goes to what we were talking about at the beginning, doesn't it? With Niyamagraha, I'm just doing something, but I don't know why. It's so easy to do things unconsciously. Thanks, Miriam. Okay, let's see what else. A couple more reflections. Anything you've heard so far that stuck?
I like that point about selfless service, because when you do that work, I think there's a very different sort of satisfaction we drive. It's not you're seeking a reward, but you feel happy. Even it is a tiny bit of act you do. So I think that probably bring us to a normal consciousness, otherwise being driven by other reckless work, which mostly I'm involved with in the office.
Sure. Even as we're working in office, if you adjust, as is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, the mentality that I'm here, this is my prescribed work that I have to do. And even if you start thinking of it as service, and then it changes the context and the mood of the way that you're doing it. It makes a big difference. Okay, let's go back to the second half of the solution. And one of the other aspects for getting out of the hole, as is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is abandon greed and envy. These two, greed and envy, are pernicious, and they keep us in the hole of ignorance and asmita, the holes of asmita and ignorance. So the way the Srimad Bhagavatam discusses how to give up greed and envy, number one, discuss the disadvantages of accumulating material wealth. Let's try that. Not advocating poverty or penury, but just talking about the disadvantages of mindlessly accumulating more wealth than one needs. Name 3 disadvantages to accumulating material wealth. You could drop it in the chat box or just mention anything. Gopi, go ahead. Good to see you. What are the obvious advantages? Doesn't have to be so esoteric, but any obvious advantages to accumulating wealth?
Mayank says causes anxiety and belly fat.
Okay. I mean, you can see it sociologically in some countries when the middle class emerges and the more wealth is, then the Weight Watchers is the next big thing in that country. Belly fat starts to go up. And what is the anxiety that comes from where? About accumulating wealth. What are the sources of anxiety?
That you may lose it at any time.
There you go. As soon as you have it, you can lose it, right? If you don't have anything, you got nothing to lose. And it doesn't mean, again, not having anything, but considering like, I'm a steward of this. I'm holding on to it and doing the best I can. It may come, it may go. But yeah, if I'm totally attached to it and think that it's going to be here all the time and I have to maintain it, and we do to some degree, that's what being a good steward is. But it does take some anxiety, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing one thinks of. Like, let me not pay it all in taxes or, and what's one more? There's a really good one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, there are many. Annapan says that if you're focused on just accumulating wealth, there will never be enough wealth for you to feel like you have enough.
Oh, what a good statement. Who said that?
And I think, is it Anna? Annapan, it says.
Anna said that. Yeah, so, right. That's a conundrum in and of itself. No matter what I get, it's not enough. In fact, there's an old lyric from a song that says, too much is not enough. So they get too much. And have you heard of this phenomenon with wealth? As soon as you get, if you get the moniker of being wealthy, then people start assuming that you should be giving it to them. We hear this over and over again with people who win a lot of money or suddenly become rich. They wrote a book and become wealthy. And then people start coming around who weren't there before. I mean, you can list, you can make a long, long list of it. And so one of the wisdom literatures gives us practical advice. Discuss it. What are some of the disadvantages of accumulating wealth? What's the second one? Let's go back to the slide.
Yeah.
Denise says, disadvantage, more stress. People sadly will use you for their money. Nice. Most people want more once they make more. You covered them all. Okay. And Mukta said your energies will go into maintaining the wealth. Taxes, Arash says. And okay, so the second one here is to discuss the unity of all beings. This is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita in a verse that says, that gives a definition of a wise person. And the verse says, Avidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gamani Hastani Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. A pundit, a learned person, that's what it means in Sanskrit, is one who sees the unity of all beings. Doesn't matter what their external body is, because that person sees the external body is just a temporary dwelling, but there's a spiritual being within who's got a DBA going on. I got my little doing business as a chip in the game here in the material world, but actually I'm not that thing. And so such a person treats everyone with respect. It doesn't mean that you treat everybody in inappropriate or people in inappropriate ways. For instance, you may see that a tiger is also a spiritual being, but it doesn't mean that you'll go over and hug it. if that gives an indication of what I'm talking about. What else from Denise? Yeah.
Denise says that we were very poor as children. My brother is a self-made multi-millionaire, and he never has enough. He owns 32 classic show cars, but as soon as he gets one, he's already looking for another. Everyone expects something from him, and he's always stressed and never feels content.
Okay. Well, there you have it, all in a nutshell. Thank you very much, Denise, for a testimonial from your personal life. Okay, is the last slide, but we also have the opportunity, a couple minutes left for any questions, and also for just a moment of mantra meditation as we move on to the next part of our day. What would you like to do? A question or a mantra meditation? You all have to vote. This is democracy in this. It's a free Zoom room. We have freedom here. Meditation, mantra meditation. Okay, it's all rolling in, mantra meditation. Okay, put up the Maha Mantra, please. This mantra is a mantra that has 16 words, 32 syllables, and it goes nicely to music. So I'm going to play a little tune and I'm going to sing it. So as I sing it, then you can listen, and then on the second go around, then sing it back behind muted mics. I know that's not much fun, but. Okay, here I go. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Second part. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone behind muted mics. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that's called Sankirtan. We do this mantra meditation, but in a group. And so, of course, that was a very small slice of it. It's so engrossing, that kind of meditation, that you could actually go on for hours. Last Sunday night, I think, we had a kirtan like that in person, and there were quite a few people there, and the chanting went on for several hours. So it's a way to take in your mantra meditation and come to self-realization just by chanting. Okay, everybody. I don't know if you know this or not, but high in the Himalayas, the yogis who sit in their caves and meditate, like we were just doing at the beginning of this show, sometimes come out looking for some roots to keep their bodies alive and healthy. And they see other yogis on the path up in the high Himalayas, and they wave to one another. And there's a phrase they call out to one another from one valley and peak to the next. And it means keep the transcendental vibration going. And it's spelled H-A-R-I, second word B-O-L, which means keep the transcendental vibration going. And they put their hands up like this and they say, Haribol,
Haribol.
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 You turn on your camera, put on your
Haribol.
microphone and say,
Haribol.
Haribol. Haribol.
Thank you very much.
Haribol.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.